All right. Hey, wait, Russ. So wait, do you go by Russ or Russell?
You can call me Russ.
All right, Russ. Okay, cool. Because that's shorter syllables that'll make the conversation more efficient.
Perfect. Works
Hey
for
man,
me.
dude, it's been so long since we met up. It was we hung out a little bit back when you lived in Korea, which was what year again was that again?
Yeah, so 2013 to 2015. So this is
Jesus.
a minute. Yeah,
Jesus, that was forever
it
ago. All right, but
was
yeah, no, but no, man, no, yeah. I've been, kind of watching your fitness and trainer journey as you've been sort of emerging and doing that, and I've been doing this, trying to get my podcast and my brand and all that other stuff set up, and then also part of that is I am going through my own little fitness journey. We just now that a lot of these COVID related restrictions have been going away, all of a
mm,
sudden it's cool to socialize, which means there's pool parties and festivals and traveling to the beach and doing all this fun stuff again. And I'm like, dude, I need to get myself in shape and start like losing weight. And I've been doing that. But I'm not, I'm, as you go, you have those little where you have some progress and then you stick for a while and progress is stick for a while. And so to
oh
like
yeah.
keep the momentum on, I want to start bringing in more fitness instructors and other people like that to sort of continue the fitness journey for me and for everybody else that's watching the podcast and stuff. And so to prime that up, if you could, go a little bit into what your fitness and nutrition background is, what, different sports you've done in the past and some of that kind of stuff.
Sure thing. Yeah. So if we wanted a little origin story here, like I didn't start off as like a fit kid, right? I was a little fat kid growing up. And then luckily I was able to slim out during high school, and then I found fitness. I started working out in college, but didn't really know what I was doing. Like was doing just sort of like P90X type things and like not really following a program. It wasn't actually until I got to Korea where I started to lift regularly and really educate myself on how to do it. It's kind of funny how that worked out. I go to Korea and I live in, I forget the neighborhood that I lived in, but it was in Incheon, which is, for all your listeners, it's just like the city just outside of Seoul, and in like a little suburb. And there was one gym there that was brand new and was right outside of my school that I worked at. So I would go there after work, and I remember they had a squat rack. They had one squat rack. No one used it besides me, but I hopped in and I was doing back squats, right? And then one of the Korean trainers came up to me and was just sort of like standing there watching me, like in my field of view. So I was kind of like, what's this guy doing? And then he was like, he didn't speak any English, but he pointed to my feet and he was just like that. So for everyone who's listening, he just went with his hands and told me to like sort of angle my feet out. And I remember in my youth and in my arrogance, I was like, what the fuck is he telling me to do? Like, I know how to squat. Like, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. And I go home, and sure enough, I go to YouTube and like look up how to actually do it. And it's like, okay, your toes need to be ankled out. They can't be facing forward. That's bad squat form. And I'm like, damn, like maybe I don't know anything about this. So that's that guy pointing at me, being like, you're doing that shit wrong, in so many words.
Just a hand gesture. That's all it took. Just get you started.
Made one gesture with his hand, right? So I was like, all right, sort of started me researching how to start lifting, how to start working out properly. So and then from there, it just cascaded. Started to develop programs. I was like writing programs for fun, like for me, for my friends. And I also enjoyed teaching. So when I got back to the States, I was able to combine the two, right? And when I got back, I had my first job as a coach. I worked at a small studio just outside of New York City in Westchester County. And then I came to Chicago. And so it sort of laid on the back burner, for a little while. I was working out. I was training Muay Thai as well, which I found in Korea, which we could definitely talk about, which we definitely will talk about for sure. But I wasn't training. I was in sales. I was just trying to make money, trying to do like the corporate thing. And that wasn't for me. And I just couldn't see it. But it was always training, and fitness was always in the background and very unofficial. And then COVID happens. I started training very seriously on my own, doing body weight circuits and was like sort of like very, endurance training and things like that. And then finally, I just decided to go all in. and say, all right, well, I got my my certification, which turns out you don't really need. No one ever asks for a certification, by the way. So you don't actually need one. You just need to know what you're talking about. So it's good to have. And then sure enough, now I'm an online fitness coach. So that's been a hell of a journey, and it still is too, because the more you actually coach people, the more you need to coach yourself on how to do it. Not to mention the entrepreneurial aspect of being a coach, which like actually coaching people is maybe like 20% of the job, right? The rest is making content. It's learning more yourself. It's reaching out to people and starting conversations and trying to become learning sales even, right? So it's a lot more than just coaching, but it's been a hell of a journey, and so here I am right now.
Okay, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
so would you say there's anything in particular about like what's a focus area or some aspect of the way that you coach that's like unique?
Sure. So if you were to come to me and be like, "Hey Russ, like, I'm a veteran lifter and I'm trying to get my bench press up 50 pounds this year, can
That's
you
a lot.
coach me?" Yeah,
That's a
yeah, yeah.
that's quite a bit
It's
for
a lot.
somebody who's been lifting weights for a while.
Let's say, all right, okay, yeah, someone ambitious, right? Either way, I'm not your guy for that, right? What I love, so when I had my first in-person coaching job in New York, this was when I got back from Korea. Actually, it was Korea and then Thailand. And when I got back from Thailand, it was 2015, and I needed a job. So I picked up this job as a coach at a small studio in Westchester County, and we mainly worked with like older populations, people who were not athletes, like people who just wanted to come in and get fit. We did what was called slow motion. Well, the catchphrase is slow motion training. Basically, you're doing one rep until failure for about a minute, minute and a half. So your maximum is like 90 seconds of just one long continuous rep, completely zero impact, about as slow as you can. You're aiming for like 10 seconds up and then 10 seconds down, continuous motion. So that training is actually kind of effective. There's a bodybuilder named Mike Menser who I think he won Mr. Olympia multiple times, but that's how he trained. He trained one set to failure for every month.
Is he a pre-Arnold or a post-Arnold guy?
I think he's post Arnold, but he's dead now.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
huh?
So
Yeah, I think I know who. I'm familiar with that name. And that I think he did some. He would do wouldn't he do something like he would do like leg curls to the point where like you could barely see it moving or something. He would do like 100, but it would be like full ones, and then it would be like he could barely get it, and then it would just make barely to where he was just like pushing on the thing or something weird like that,
yeah.
where he's just.
Well, it was like he was training to failure, right? So but like completely to failure.
Yeah,
So, like,
exactly. Like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, like if you're stuck, you're pushing for another 5 to 7 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Like you're really going until you can't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's kind of what we would do, right? And so it was really beneficial for older populations, like or people with injuries, or just people who didn't have a lot of time on their hands. Like you could either go once a week for 20-minute session or twice a week for a 20-minute session. It was like that. But the thing is, like, if you actually do it right, it really did work. And so, like, this one client who I had, she was my 7 a.m., right? Very first client of the day, would come every single session. Didn't miss a session. Her name was Barbara. Barbara was in her 70s. When I was leaving, when I moved, right before I moved to Chicago, she pulled me aside. She's like, Russ, like, I can't thank you enough. We worked together for a year at this point. She goes, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me, because I'm in my 70s. Before I started coming here, I was feeling stiff. I was feeling weak. I was having trouble moving around. And she's like, now when I babysit my grandkids and take them to the park, I'm running around with them and chasing them, and I can keep up with the little 5-year-olds who are running around. And none of my friends who are my age can do that with their grandkids. It's like they need to sit down, they're out of breath, they're tired, they're feeling weak. And she's the exact opposite, right? She's like, I feel 20, 30 years younger. And so that not that I specialize in older populations, but what I really enjoy is the transformation. And so taking someone who's out of shape, right, who maybe like let themselves go, maybe they're a little overweight, maybe they're feeling weak, or maybe they're skinny, and they're just trying to get their fitness journey started, but they don't know where to start, or they have trouble being consistent and trouble with accountability, or they don't have a program that's entirely suited for their goal, and they don't know what to do about it and looking for professional help. Those are the kinds of people that I really like working with. Because it's like the transformation aspect that I really enjoy. Not to mention, it's not just physical fitness. It's not just looking good, not just getting abs. It's everything you gain from that. And that's like an entire another question, right? But to me,
please go on.
It really just comes down to fitness. So that's exercise, like your physical body, nutrition, and then your mindset as well. Mindset's sort of like a thing that sort of overarches both of those. But if you were to ask somebody, like, what are the most important things in life? You usually have a list of like 7 fundamental things. It's like health, wealth, purpose, faith, relationships, family, love, things like that. Whatever's on that list, there are multiple lists, but health is always on them. And if you ask anyone, what's the most important thing? What's the most important out of all these major things that are the most important things in life? The answer is always your health, because without your health, it limits what you can do with everything else. Like if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. I think there's a saying that Confucius, it might have been Confucius, I don't know, but it says, a healthy man wants 1,000 things. A sick man just wants one.
Sounds like Confucius.
Sounds like Confucius.
Yeah,
right?
I remember me and him used to be drinking buddies together, and he used to say stuff like that. So that's why I'm so wise. I used to hang out with you. Okay.
Just like he's just your buddy. He's just like, he gets so philosophical.
That would be really cool. Would that actually be fun, or would that be fun, or would that be like Confucius? Please shut the fuck up. That's enough.
You just let us revel in our problems.
Quit trying to solve our problems. I don't know. Okay.
I don't want to be stoic anymore, my friend. Like, just want to have fun. But it is the foundation, right? And so it's not just like that transformation. It's like the introduction of that into their lives, because if you don't have your health, it limits everything else. Like if you see someone in a Ferrari, or someone like who's like a wealthy CEO or what have you, and they're fat as fuck. Like, what do you think? Like, that they're not on top of their game, no matter what it is, right? Like they might be smart, they might be savvy, they might know what they might be highly intelligent and capable and driven, but if they're out of shape, like if they're a fat piece of shit, then you can ask them and they know they're not playing at their highest level.
Right. And I mean, there's different, I mean, we could go into how many levels of being overweight impacts, different health outcomes. But the one that you already hit on, that no matter what is coming for all of us is getting old. And so unless you die, young or something like that, which obviously is not on anybody's goal list, but no matter what, at the end of the day, the end of the game, as long as you go, you're going to, that being old is at the end of the road for you. And to me, what you really talked about that I think is really significant, people don't think about until it's too late, is how they treat their body throughout their years and how well it's going to affect them down the road when they are old. And Barbara, when you were talking about her, that she can run around, she can have fun, and she can enjoy times with her kids, which means that her kids are going to have memories of running around, or the grandkids are going to have memories of running around with grandma, and they're going to cherish that. And then she's probably also going to live longer as a result of just being able to move around and be happy and fun and all that other stuff. Whereas, her friends that she was talking about that can't do that attribute their issues to age, which is half the story, but then half the story is probably just a lifetime of habits that didn't really set you up for an active, life when you're in that age. And that's kind of more of like a thing that I think about a lot, is like, And I mean, I don't know how old if I have any old listeners that are, in their 70s or 80s or whatever, but it's
Shout
like,
out to you
you,
guys, by the way.
you
You're
could
the
be,
real ones.
you could be 70, or you can be 80, or you can be 90. All of those, young people in our 30s, we would consider those all to be old. However, the quality of your life when you're 70, you can be old when you're 70, or you can be old and able to move around and able to do stuff when you're 70. And it's like, what you're setting yourself up for that. This is quickly turning into the geriatric fitness podcast, but
And why shouldn't it be?
but that's the thing that people just don't think about. And I think that there's a weird sense of, and obviously I know this is your perspective, and it's going to be mine, and it's mine too, which is, I don't think that fitness is a thing that some people should just exclude themselves from and be like, oh, I'm not into that, that's not for me, or whatever. And it doesn't mean you need to go in and be like some sort of meathead and just go in and just pushing as heavy a weights as you can and going nuts and try to get huge and all that other stuff. That is, some people love doing that. I like doing that. Obviously you love working out too, but like, I think that fitness is for everyone. Like, everyone should be like, we're not designed to spend the entirety of our lives sedentary at a desk, in a car, on a couch. There's a level, and even then, as much as I love weightlifting, I try to mix in other stuff like to do some other movement, even if it's a very slow jog or whatever it is. But it's like, I think that I think that everyone should have a fitness habit of some kind, something that gets them up and moving around and get their blood flowing and get their heart pumping and doing all that other stuff. And the idea, and the fact that there's some people that just think it's a not for them thing. It's like this, using your body is for everyone.
100%. That couldn't be further from the truth. And so you touched on a lot of things. And so first of all, so going back to what you said about like you are, as you get older, right? So I want to close that thread for a minute. As you get older, like you're sort of the result of all the habits you've built up to until then, right? And so the point is, it's like you don't want to start working on your health when it becomes a priority to work on your health. Okay. Like, it's not like, oh, like when it gets bad, then I'll bring it back to baseline, or then I'll start working on it. It's like, no, like if you're not optimizing your body right now, then you're going to be limited by what you can do in every day of your life, let alone your future, right? It's like where you are right now at any point in time is the result of your habits until that point.
There's a when I was a long time ago, there's a special forces guy that I was chatting with, and he was giving advice to me and one of my other friends that were thinking about going down that road. And he one of the guys was saying, he's like, yeah, man, well, I just need to get back in shape. They'll be ready to go to some of these training things. And he goes, the best way to get in shape is to never get out of shape. And I heard that, and that was when I was like 22 or so. And that always stuck with me, that like, if I start seeing myself drift off, I shouldn't see it as it takes 10 times, and this is not to discourage anybody, but it takes 10 times as much effort to get yourself from out of shape into shape versus the amount of effort it takes just to maintain it. If you're already if you're already at a level of fitness, and you always, I personally want to continuously improve, but it's easier for me to stay at a relative level of shape. It just like basic maintenance versus, blowing it off for 6 months and then trying to get back into it, especially if you're trying to do something that's like a high performance type of thing that, you really should never just like blow it off and be like, I'll get to that later.
Definitely not. Definitely not. You're totally right. Like, it is way easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. That said, I mean, like, so if you've got in shape in the past, right, and then like you've let yourself fall off, like the version of you that got in shape in the past, maybe for the first time, like that version of you had a lot of courage, right? And so it's gonna be easier for you now because you've already done it. But the point is, like, there are downward spirals that you can go down, right? But there are also upward spirals. Once you start to turn the ship around and really start to go all in into good habits, then you're going to hit an upward spiral because you're going to build that momentum. You're building that momentum when you start stacking those wins every single day. Then life becomes easy, right? It's like goes to the saying, it's like do the hard decision every day, life becomes easy. Do the easy thing every day, life becomes hard.
Well,
So
and
just
actually
one
that touches on a concept that I mean, and you being a fitness trader, I'm not, so like I can't, this is just a perspective of mine, but like I feel like people get themselves discouraged because they have some sort of long reaching goal of they want to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, they want to put on some muscle, or they want to do whatever it is, but it's this like goal of like, I want to get to this in 6 months, and they kind of they kind of get discouraged if they start falling off of track, and then they start really falling off of track. And what you just mentioned was it's about the day-to-day things. It's like, just focus. That's the way I try to look at it, is like, focus on what is your process that day. What have you done that day? It's like, and if you focus on the micro, those, like you said, little wins start stacking up, and then it, then, and over time, and then even in 6 months, maybe you won't get to where you originally set yourself out for, but you'll be better off than where you started. And really, like, if you do that another 6 months, and you get a little bit better, and it's like, you can, as long as you're improving, that means exactly one thing, which is you're not getting worse.
100%. And but this is one of the reasons why people hire coaches to begin with. It's not just like, oh, I need someone like with knowledge about where to go. It's that they have no idea what stacking wins are, right? What that means. The majority of people don't look at their day and live day to day. They either live in the past with guilt and regret and shame, or they live in the future with worry, anxiety, and fear. It's either one of those two. It's like, what do you learn when you're on when you're learning about self-development, is that bringing yourself to the moment, that puts you in a state of gratitude where there is no past or future, right? It's just the present moment. And it's what you can do in the present moment that gives you power, right? That gives you strength. Like, you're no longer helpless. You're no longer at the whims of the future or the regrets of the past. And so the thing is, the majority of people aren't even living there, so they don't have a concept of what stacking wins are, because they don't keep track of what they're doing right. They're only focused on what's going wrong. And having a coach, and I hate to use the term life coach, but like, as a fitness coach, you're focused on, okay, these are your non-negotiables. We set up a program, and these are your non-negotiables for the program. You have to hit this every day. Oh, you have to go to the gym 3 days a week or whatever it is. And you're going to hit this, 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 and this, and this. Like, there's a set program, there's a set schedule for you, which you must follow. And the more you follow it, the more you start to see results. When you look in the mirror and start to see results, it's like, holy shit, like, I'm actually doing something, following a program, having little wins on those days, and then making a change. And you start off haphazardly, for sure, because you sort of stumble in this direction because it's a completely new habit for you to go to the gym, right? Or to eat right, or to hit a certain calorie intake, or to hit a certain protein requirement, to change the foods, right? It's always, or to say no to foods that are not going to support you. It's always like a little win, but like, you sort of miss a bunch of them, you do some of them, but you do more than you did yesterday, or you do more than you did last month. And once you start to do that, and you start to visually see the change in the mirror, and start to feel the change every morning when you wake up, because you wake up less tired, you need less cups of coffee, you're more satiated when you are walking around, like, you're not eating shit anymore, so you're happier, because your nutrition affects your mood and how well you can find your energy. It's like, once you start seeing and feeling those results, then it's like, okay, now I'm going to start winning even more, because you're more focused on what you're doing every single day. And you have that list of non-negotiables. Most people wake up, 5 minutes before they need to down a cup of coffee and like leave for work, and they're starting already on the back foot. There's no plan in place. When you plan, what's the saying goes? When you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? But when you plan things out, when you have a set goal in mind of what you're going to accomplish that day, and then you check off those boxes, all of a sudden you start to shift your entire way of thinking. You're now not on the receiving end of life. You're on the giving end, right? It's like, all your problems, you're not stuck in a room with them, they're stuck in a room with you, because you're going to start to knock them out. It's a completely different mindset. It's attacking instead of defending. And so when you make that shift, and you start almost like coach yourself on that shift, or you have someone who's able to facilitate your journey along that road, like that's where you get the true self-improvement. That's where you get the true self-development. You start to reach that next level of consciousness where it's like you start to progress instead of regress. Because there is a same thing. It's either you're progressing or you're regressing.
Well, so how much of it do you think is dependent on, people? You kind of talked about a couple different things about, like, whether you're focusing on what you're doing right versus, things that are going wrong and all that other stuff. And one of the things I've been noticing for myself lately of me trying to make progress towards my goals is, like, I have a pretty long commute to work every day. It's about an hour and a half. And on the way to work, I'm eating like a protein bar for, like, to commute. But then I'm really looking forward to, like, I'm going to get to my office and I'm going to eat breakfast. I got my little my little meal preps that I do. And I'm like, I'm really, like, looking forward to that. And then as soon as that, I'm like, I'm really looking forward to go to, because I go to the gym during lunch. But I'm like, I've got an event that I'm going to get to more or less every hour and a half, 2 hours of, like, oh, I'm really looking forward to getting to this next thing. And then kind of like you're saying, a stack of wins of, like, because my mind is so fixated on, I'm going to get to this thing. And then I'm going to get to this thing. And it's like, and I have it broken down in these, like, sort of chunks that are really not that far apart, that by the end of the day, I haven't eaten any junk food. I've lifted I've gotten at least an hour, 60 minutes in lifting. I've typically done my cardio depending on what my evening schedule is, but I typically do it, even if it's 10 minutes of jump roping. And then I'm back in my car, and then I come back up here, and then I have another little meal for dinner. And then I just doing that. And then, like I said, it's like, it goes through this little patterns or whatever. But I feel like, the thing that keeps me on that is there's just a level of, like, my attention is at that thing of, oh, I've got to get to this next thing. And I'm, like, focused and interested in getting to that next thing that's 2 hours away that is going to lead to my progress.
Yeah. So, like, you're just, like, sort of leapfrogging from one thing to the other, but it's that momentum that you're talking about, right? It's like, boom, check off one thing, done. And done is the power of more, or the engine of more, right?
Done to the end.
So it's like, the more you're able to do, the more you're able to do. So that's awesome.
No,
so how's your progress been so far?
Say again?
How's your progress been? You're saying you're sort of like on the weight loss.
Yeah, well, I've lost, so I weighed at the beginning of this, I weighed 220, and that was actually back in May. I did hire a nutritionist, and we talk all the time, and he gives me a little advice on how to do my meal preps and all that other stuff. But I started out at 220. I'm down to about 207 now, so I have definitely made progress. But it was like, but I was sort of, that's why I was sort of bringing up the example of you might think that, like, 6 months from now you want to be at this point. Oh yeah, it's September right now. So what is that, like? Don't make me do math in public. May.
What are we counting towards?
July, August, September. Okay, it's been 5 months. Okay, it's been 5 months.
So
10 pounds. So what is that? That 13 pounds in 5 months is really not that much, but there have been so many points along that where I could have easily let myself get discouraged of being like, oh man, this isn't going well, and I'm not staying on track or whatever. And I haven't. I was just like, hey man, at least I'm doing better than I was, And so that's kind of what I was using to encourage, which is why I was saying that it was like, I think that's been obviously there's a lot of different tools that I have at my disposal. I mean, I've been lifting weights for a long time. I used to be a good runner. I mean, I've had different aspects of my life where I was in where I was in, like, pretty good shape. And I am being a trained chef and all that. I have an advantage for the meal prep end of things, of making things that are, small portions, low calories, but still taste really fucking good. So that's an advantage that a lot of people don't have. But I would say that the biggest thing is just like a mindset. So, like, just thinking about it of, like, hey, at least because I've had that during the peak of COVID, or the beginning of COVID, I guess. I was put in a position in my job to where I was responsible for monitoring and reporting on the different situation, how it was going to affect a lot of things that affected my organization. And that meant I was doing 12-hour shifts without a lunch, or without a real lunch. So I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't really able to cook, or have anything ready to eat or whatever. And so my health, and I was like fucking horrifyingly depressed because I suddenly lost all my personal freedom because of all the different rules. And so I started coping with a lot of very unhealthy eating habits and not working out. And so I saw my weight start ballooning up. And I was just like, dude, this is fucking horrible. I do not want to live this way. I don't want to feel this way. And I really only got up to 227. So it wasn't that much further even from where I'm at now. But I did put it on really fast. That was the shocking part. And so I like had to get a grip on that, and I didn't let it drift off too much. But then it's been a, kind of a continuous struggle trying to figure out how, with limited opportunities for physical activity that we've had here in Korea based on whatever the current rules were, the mask requirements or whatever. Because like it's very discouraging to go running outside if you have to wear a mask while you are running. That is very suboptimal. And up until May this year, Korea had an outdoor mask mandate. I don't want to make all this thing about Korea and Korean COVID restrictions.
We wouldn't do it.
But there are challenges. There are challenges. Well, I mean, regardless of what your political affiliation with an opinion on it is, it fucking sucks to go jogging wearing a mask. I think that is a relatively apolitical statement.
But they had a mask mandate here in Chicago. Like after not having one, like our governor was like, "Oh, we're just going to do what New York did and or wherever else did and do a mask mandate." So we had to wear a mask inside. And at this point, everything was already open for several months already, and without the mask mandate. Thing was, it was now, I think it was in January. I think in January they had started the mask mandate, and that was just when I got back into Muay Thai. And so we actually had to wear masks in a Muay Thai gym training. And it was like you were waterboarding yourself. It was terrible.
That's literally how I describe it, because I literally had to do that because we're still doing that here in Korea with the indoor masking, even in a gym. And I have signed up for a couple different MMA gyms, including a Muay Thai gym. And that is exactly how I describe it. I describe it as you're waterboarding yourself because you're sweating, unless you are just going so slow and putting in such little effort that you don't sweat, which I don't have any hair. So all the sweat in here goes all the way down my face and soaks my mask. And I actually had to just stop doing it. For as much as I enjoyed doing Muay Thai, I was like, I'm sorry, dude. This is absurd to do this. This makes absolutely no sense. And so I don't want to skip too far ahead, but one of the things that I really wanted to bring you on here was sort of different ideas for doing cardio, because I've been just jogging and it's starting, and I'm like, is this even the best thing? I think it depends on your body composition. And I do like running because it's a way to kind of get outside and move around and do things and whatever. But sometimes I don't have time for it. Sometimes I don't want to, sometimes it can be a little bit hassle if my knees are, I took a little bit of a beating during legs or whatever. So it's like coming up with what are some of your favorite options for cardio if somebody's restricted on, equipment or space, something like that. Because the bottom line is we've been going through this COVID thing for a while, and maybe it's over, maybe it's not. However, one of the things we did learn was if for some reason you're highly limited on your public activities, how can you adapt to that in a way that doesn't adversely impact your health? Because that was the other thing. It was like the COVID thing, it was a public health crisis, but the way we decided to respond to it was by picking up all of these extremely unhealthy habits, staying at home, not exercising, not being able to eat, not mental health, not being able to socialize. And so there are aspects of that we've got a lot of. How old are you?
31.
I'm 37. We got a lot of life in front of us. And there may be other things that happen in the future that similarly restrict our ability to go in public, and having a robust set of options that allow us to still stay fit and healthy in that type of environment may be a good tool belt to have.
I hear you. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. And as an aside, I was told for the longest time that, I thought that 31 was old, but or 30s are old, but guess what? There actually is a whole lot of life left. It's we're still pretty young,
We're just not 20. We're just not an idiot. We're just not idiots in our 20s.
Oh yeah.
I'm still an idiot. I'm just a slightly less. And anybody else in your 20s, hey, just so you know, your 30s are fucking awesome. I just want to
Oh
say
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Don't
they're
don't
great.
be don't be worried about, you're just 31. I'm like, I'm on the back end. My 30s were fucking great. And so I'm like, 20s are fun, but 20s are highly confusing. I've never been a woman, so I'm not going to speak to that experience, but at least not yet. It's a new time.
Yeah. Who knows these days,
So
right?
far
It's
in
just
my
like,
life,
hey,
so
like
far in this life, I haven't been a woman yet. I guess anything can happen, right? But
whoever identifies as a woman is technically a woman
well,
in
I can tell you
the
this.
US.
I am officially over the age of, I'm past my 20s. So unless they decide to say that I can now start identifying as someone who's in their 20s and also identify as a woman at the same time, I'll never be a woman in her 20s. So all I can do is speak to the male experience of being in your 20s, and it's fucking confusing. Most of
Oh yeah.
your 20s is just this real crazy time where you're just like, I need to find a purpose and I need to do these
Yeah,
things. And things
yeah.
are fucking crazy.
I need to find a purpose. Yeah, and
Whatever the
meanwhile,
fuck it is.
you don't know how to do anything,
Yeah,
right?
you don't know how to do anything. And you're
Dude,
broke too. Unless you,
20-year-olds these days are way smarter than 20-year-olds when we were in our 20s.
I
Do you
well,
think that's what I think? Do you think the same thing?
I mean,
Or are they
I think that over time, people's level of intelligence is probably about the same, but their area of focus and competencies in different things changes. So there's a lot of like analog kind of things about like reading, like, I don't know, I guess reading a map comes to mind, but a lot of the things that happened that you learned how to do before before the smartphone came out, there's a lot of stuff that I had to just know how to do that like
yeah,
suddenly became irrelevant the second that the iPhone came out and became in everybody's
like
pockets.
have eye contact and like have interpersonal conversation
Go to
skills?
a bar and hit on someone because that's where they were.
Girls, dude, that's actually one of the things that I want to talk on. So we need to get back to the cardio thing, but that's one of the things I want to talk on too. Is like the well, I mean, we can talk about the whole dating market too, because that's really shifted with like online dating, things like that. I'm not sure if you want to talk on that on your podcast, but there's like a whole issue with fertility and testosterone levels right now. That
Yeah.
is absolute. That is no one's talking. No one's in the mainstream is really talking about it. But testosterone levels have more than halved over the last 70 years, like since the 1950s, at least in the United States, and no one knows why. Like we can sort of speculate on that, but like no one really knows why. And like fertility rates have dropped dramatically. Like
Well,
a lot of countries are beyond their replacement rate,
right,
or lower than their replacement rate.
right.
So
I mean,
that's like a whole can of worms.
So I'm vaguely familiar with the testosterone thing, and I'm a little bit of a nerd. So but before I like talk, I would enjoy talking about it in the hypothetical, but without actually seeing some kind of study on it and knowing kind of the validity of the source. I don't know if there was something that it's one of those subjects that's sort of taken and politicized, and it's meant to do some other, it has some sort of more nefarious messaging behind it.
That's fair.
I would say that it does. I don't want to get too scientifical about it, but I do think that, yeah, it's probably true. There's probably something, and there's probably a range of factors that have caused that. I mean, there's so many different things of, maybe it's pesticides and hormones that we're putting in our foods. Maybe it's lack of physical activity. Maybe it's lack of behavior that previously was very
That promotes
normal.
testosterone production,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
like lifting and like typically like manly things, like risk taking, things like that. Going outside and getting sun, like vitamin D actually has an effect on testosterone. So if you're not getting vitamin D, then you're lower or something like that. If you follow Twitter, it's all about seed oils, right? Like seed oils and like cornstarch and things like that are used in all of our foods. Well, that lowers testosterone, but who knows? That's sort of a tangent, and we don't.
Well, no. I'm actually interested in it. It's one of the bigger areas. So if it's like an area that you researched, I'm totally open to talking about it. I'm not dismissing it as some sort of like conspiracy theory thing or some sort of weird political agenda kind of thing. It's more of because I'm vaguely familiar with it and haven't researched it heavily. My ability to speak to it is relatively limited, and I don't want to personally misstep, but if you know a lot about the subject, you know, you can bring it up. It my
I'm not.
personal well
I'm
my
not.
per oh okay my personal interpretation is I think that there's a high probability that it is true. It may not be 50%, but I'm sure that there's an extent to which testosterone in males has decreased, but it almost seems like there's a high probability that it's a constellation of habits of, you know, you just listed off like 5 of them, and it could be just all these different little micro habits that people growing up today are less likely to engage in a bunch of different things, but then there's also environmental things that come into play, and there's probably a lot of stuff that goes into that. But I will say, regardless of how many different things are causing it, to the extent that it may be true, it is something that I would highly recommend that people, and we haven't really figured out whether this podcast is aimed at 70-year-olds or 20-year-olds, but if you're in your 20s, I would definitely say that your quality of life is going to it's very likely to be very much better if you are able to promote testosterone, development in your life. And that doesn't mean go around and pick fights with people and be an asshole and go do a bunch of other like shitty things to people. That's not what that means.
Yeah, it's a very low key thing to pick fights with people, right? It's just like if you're going around picking fights with people, like you're not a very strong person.
You know, and I actually want to point that out because I'm going to say that my official line on that subject, because I've mentioned it several times in other podcasts, because when like ones that are focused on martial arts and different stuff like that, is that whether you're a high testosterone or low testosterone person, picking a fight with another person is actually more revelatory of your insecurities than anything else. You know, you could be the toughest fucking guy in the world. If you feel like shit about yourself and you're constantly needing to prove that in out to people that you've done as a minor disrespect to you, it shows that your focus is in the wrong areas. Like clearly the shit you're focused on isn't leading you in a direction that's going to ever lead to you having any kind of success in your life or happiness or fulfillment, because not to mention the kinds of things that 20-year-olds get into fights about, or like 20 people in their 20s, the shit that they get into fights about is the dumbest shit. It's almost always in a bar. It's almost always, you spilled a drink on me, you stepped on my foot, you disrespected me, you looked at my girl, you did all these fucking things that are misinterpreted. And it's never like a matter of some sort of life and death, defending people or whatever, or even a matter of fucking honor. It's a matter of your personal insecurity. And also, like, if you're out in that environment, you're out in a bar, you're out to socialize. You're out to either hang out with your buddies, you're out to talk to girls, you're out to have fun, you're out to do those things. And the second that you get in a shoving match with somebody, no one's gonna be fucking impressed. Even if you outshove the other guy, no one's gonna be like, wow, you're amazing. And then also you totally kill the fucking vibe of whatever was happening. And then you start giving yourself the reputation of, oh, that's that guy that we bring out that's kind of a bummer that picks fights with people. Yeah. And it's just across the board. And then also one of the other things, you as a guy that does Muay Thai and me as a guy that's tried to do Muay Thai a couple times and other martial arts, one of the things you'll notice is that guys that know how to fight have a totally different disposition about them. They're normally the most mellow, calm people. And you just sort of see this like look in their eyes. You see the relaxation in their shoulders. And they're just these very mellow people because they don't have anything to be insecure about, because they test themselves on a weekly fucking basis. And they know that if anything comes up, they have zero things to worry about because their comfort area is getting punched in the face. And 100%.
They volunteer to get their ego smashed every single day on the mat.
And that is actually one of the biggest things that you actually find is when you do start training martial arts is you will never find out how bad you are at fighting until you start learning how to do it. And you go, oh crap, I didn't know that. I'm like getting fucked up. And all this
before that, it's like, oh, hey man, are you good at fighting? It's like, oh bro, you don't know my mentality, right? It's like, I see red and bodies hit the floor. You heard that before? And it's like, oh, please, sure, bud, sure.
Yeah, fuck it. So,
Yeah.
and you'll never see those guys in fucking bar fights. It's
No,
the most
they're the
absurd shit.
calmest, the chillest, the
Mhm.
friendliest guys, most likely that
Mhm.
you'll ever meet, right? Because they
I
don't
mean,
have
of course,
anything.
there's always exceptions. There's always exceptions, but generally,
They're always, yeah. There's always a guy that trains and like he just goes out and is just
he's
an absolute menace.
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
but
it's not about that, right? It's
but
good
that's
vibe.
but that's the
And
same. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead. Okay, so that's
go.
the same shit. That's the same shit, which is the guy that wants to go to BJJ class and fucking tweak everybody and not, when somebody's tapping them out, but they want to keep going or they want to start doing other shit and trying to fuck other people up. That's going back to the same shit of
Yeah,
there's some sort of insecurity about you that you're trying to bring out and you're trying to take out on other people to prove something to yourself that you're actually not the piece of shit that you're telling yourself you are. And that's why all these other things are so important is like, finding these other ways to like sort of positively develop yourself and your self-image and all that other stuff. And it's like, what the things that we're touching on is like, obviously, there's a huge social stigma against being overweight. But that's not founded in nothing. There are every, health indicator that there is indicates that if you have excess body fat, your health is going to go down and your life expectancy is probably going to be shorter and all those other things. Thank you so much for watching the podcast so far. These are a lot of fun to make. The main mission I have behind making this podcast is that I want to make sure that you have the information and the tools that you need to maintain an active and healthy and injury-free lifestyle for as long as possible. We're going to keep on making these. If you think that you know anybody that will also get a lot of benefit from the information in this interview, please do them a huge favor and share this video with them. Thank you.
You got to surround yourself with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So like that BJJ guy, like who goes to tweak everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's gonna get humbled sooner or later. If he does that in a gym where he's not the top dog, someone's gonna go ahead. The mat enforcer is gonna go ahead and humble the shit out of him, and he's not gonna do that anymore, right? So it sort of ties into what you're saying with like being overweight, right? Here, being overweight in the States, right? Being overweight sort of has they're trying to enforce it being normal and not having a negative stigma. And listen, you don't want to be mean to people, but people need to know the facts, like just what you said. Yeah, being overweight carries all sorts of negative, very objectively negative health effects. Right? It's not good at all. And now you've got I read a statistic on Twitter today, so take it with a grain of salt, but that 40% of American children are entering high school at least overweight, if not obese. And that's actually I would totally believe that at face value.
Right.
The rates are so bad. And the thing is it's not healthy at any size. I forget, was it People magazine or Vogue magazine, something like that, had an obese, not overweight, obese model on their page. He was in yoga pants or whatever, dancing. And the caption was healthy at any size. And it's like, no, you're not, that's not fucking correct. I don't care if she does yoga, right? I don't care if she's flexible and mobile. She might be very strong. Guess what? People who are super obese are actually pretty fucking strong because they're literally carrying around all that extra weight all day.
Weight training all day.
Yeah, man. Throw on a 60 or a 40 pound or a 60 pound weight vest and walk around with it all day. You'll feel it. A lot of times when you lose weight, their calves and legs are just fucking humongous because they're just carrying around all this extra baggage. And so that's not the issue. The issue is everything else that comes with it. Hypertension, literally shortening your lifespan. Your heart is all sorts of heart issues and cardiovascular issues.
And that was something else I wanted to jump on too. Your body's getting bigger, your weight is going up, your heart is staying the same size, but now it has to pump all that blood through all that extra space and all that other things. And that's if you don't even have arterial blockage of different kinds. And it's the thing about your heart only has so many pumps isn't true. Your heart has lots of pumps, But if you're putting it under, it's a muscle. And if you're constantly stressing it the fuck out, at a certain point, you're just going to wear the fucker out. And that's why you have all these issues with overweight people having cardiac arrest in their 50s, which is not old.
Which is not old.
Mhm.
It's not,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, like what the fuck are we talking about here?
Mhm.
Like what, like the opposite of saying you're totally fine is not you're a fat piece of shit. It's not like there is something in the middle there that we can actually address and say like, hey, listen, like we can actually promote healthy living and like, and actually like, you know, strong, like capable, like lean bodies that are healthy or getting healthier without saying we can promote that and then not say like you are not worth anything if you're obese. It's like, no, that's not the case.
Right. And
you are unhealthy. Like, but the thing is, it's like, it's an addiction like anything else. It's an emotional addiction. It's a food addiction. We actually don't talk about what causes obesity as much as we should. It's not just eating a lot of food, right? It's a food addiction. What causes food addiction? It's emotional. It comes from your mentality. It's a mental issue.
Right.
But the thing is, like, we all have addictions. Like smokers have addiction. People addicted to heroin have addiction. People can be addicted to McDonald's the same way you could be addicted to heroin. But there's a stigma against drug addiction, right? Or alcoholism, or like, you know, the person who gets into bad relationships every time has emotional addictions to feeling a certain way and being treated a certain way, and certain emotional cycles that they go through, or behavioral cycles. It's just like anything else, but it's a lot more visible. And so that sort of brings a certain stigma. It's not just, oh, you're a fat person. It's just one of the many things, one of the many emotional addictions that you can suffer from manifesting in a certain behavior. That's
actually, no, I love that. I love the fact that you just put it that way, because that's kind of, I think that's a healthy way to think about it. Is a lot of people have bad habits, they have emotional baggage, have different things, and they manifest in a lot of different ways. One of the way, and I want to pick a relatively benign one because I don't want to go go into it too deep.
Sure.
But one of the ones you mentioned earlier was you're from New York. When you got back from Korea, you went back to New York, and there was a level of nostalgia and familiarity you had with it. There's a sort of emotional connection that you have with the city. Well, I have the exact same experience in reverse. When I've been living in Korea, I went to New York to go to culinary school. I had never really I had been there like once, like years and years ago. This is the first time I was ever like living there. Every day I was miserable because I missed Seoul. And it was just not even anything in particular. It wasn't my friends. It wasn't the kimchi. It was just being in the city, the feel of being in Seoul. I was just like super, super attached to. And as soon as I come back here, I just feel like I just relax. And I'm not saying I don't have any problems. I'm not saying I don't have things that I want to do and other things and times that aren't, but I feel like I'm in the place I'm supposed to be when I'm in Gangnam, Seoul. And I think that a lot of people, and that might be rooted in some sort of other negative aspects of my life, and maybe I'm coping in some, you never know. But I think that people find different things that are their comfort zone, and maybe it's some sort of message they tell themselves that they reinforce to certain behaviors. Maybe it's going to some kind of particular action like eating. I'm not going to say that as someone who's traveled around the world and had some of the best food there is and goes to Michelin restaurants every now and then, and it has just some really amazing food, that I don't enjoy a fucking a quarter pounder or whatever the hell they have at McDonald's when I'm at my drunkest and that's what's open and I happen to be walking by it. I will have a little bit of weakness and I'll go ahead and get myself a burger, and I'll go get ahead and get myself a fries. And I'm not exactly proud of myself in that moment, but at the same time, it does taste pretty fucking good. And I can
collapse. It's so, dude, I had a McDonald's burger a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was like spur of the moment thing. I was like, oh, whatever. I was with my brother, right?
Mm,
And we were hungry. And we
mm,
walked past. I was like, oh, yeah, let's get it. Haven't had it in years, actually. Haven't had like
mm,
fast food in years. Like
mhm,
our diets like are actually like pretty fucking on point. I'll have you go into
mhm.
that later. But we just hopped in, got some burgers, and it was so good. Like it was just, tasted the way it always tasted, right? It was fantastic.
And
Who knows what
now,
they put on it to make it taste so good, feel so good when you're eating it, right? But it's like, damn, like this is delicious.
no, it really is.
All
It is
together.
good. So I point that out because I want to empathize. I want to empathize and relate to people that eat that food. That I get it. I understand it really does taste good and you enjoy it, especially because most of us, especially if you're American, you were raised on that shit. And I'm going to use, and I'm shit, big S, it's shit. And
Yeah.
but we were raised on that. You were a kid. Oh, we're gonna go get a Happy Meal today. And this thing, it's like, it's so to say that there's not some nostalgia and joy and all that other stuff that's laced into eating that fast food, of course there is, and of course you get it, but it's like a matter of, I kind of feel like to a certain extent, and I'm sure you have something to say about this, but like I think there's an over reliance on discipline and when it comes to trying to improve people's health. Like it's like, no, I just have to be disciplined. I just have to be fucking, I can't make any mistakes. And then the second they make one fucking mistake, they let it snowball and then it's game over. And it's like, just like we just said, we're doing stuff, we're living our life, and it's a little bit easier for us because we're maintaining. I don't know if you have some sort of fitness goal you're trying to achieve. We've mentioned a couple times that I'm trying to lose weight, so that means that I'm a little more focused on that, a little bit of extra percent to make my progress. But at the same time, I don't let the fact that occasionally I'll go out and get some McDonald's, or I'll have something that I know is pretty fatty or whatever, derail me too much. My two biggest habits that are actually slowing me down is because I have such a long commute and I have a relatively active social life, that I don't get as much sleep as I should, even during the week. And then for as I've tried to moderate, I've tried to control for this as much as possible, but I still drink. I still love drinking. I don't drink all the fucking time. I don't drink beer. I drink straight scotch. But sometimes I can't get a nice bottle of scotch, and sometimes I'll have something that has some mixers in it. Neither one of them is good. Neither one of them is ideal. But the thing that has a bunch of orange juice or Coke or whatever it is much worse because it's got all that damn sugar, which is going to be worse than like a couple sips of some whiskey.
You're
So
not doing soju and Koss anymore. Those days are over.
I wouldn't say they're fully over. And if it come, but I have been more of a dick with my friends. And when they're pulling stuff out, I will be, shit you not, they'll pour shots of soju for everybody, and we'll cheers, and I'll sip like a third of it, and I'll put it down, and I'll just work my way through it. And part of that is just because I don't want to get totally fucked up the rest of the night. I want to pace myself. But then like that'll kind of be the extent of it. It's pretty rare for me. It's got to be a real YOLO moment for me to do the beer and the soju mixed together. I'm not saying I never do it at all, but I'm just saying like I'm going out tonight, and I'm sure I will not mix those things. I will be doing quarter shots of soju, and I will pace myself, and I will get myself just the right level of drunk to have fun, but not so much that I'm causing myself negative health consequences and eating Burger King.
Not to go too much off on a tangent, but like one of the things I really miss about Korea was the drinking. Well, the drinking culture is insane.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I missed was like going to Hongik Park and just like going to the GS25, like that was right across the street, getting some bottles of soju or some beers or like whatever, what have you, going over to the park and just like hanging out outside and drinking. And then going to a bar or to a restaurant later. And
that's an institution. That's
on one of those like 24-hour barbecues restaurants. That was the one in particular that was one of my favorites. Was the one that's like just across the street from Thursday Party in Hongdae, and it's a 24-hour one. And oh my goodness,
I do love so reminiscing. Good. I do love remancing about Korean drinking culture. And so we could go. I mean, we could go into a whole different thing. But then when we start making these hyper micro level references that no one's going to get about Hongik Park or Thursday parties, whatever.
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it's,
No,
it's
no one's gonna
whatever.
get it.
But I would say that's a major institution in Korea that people don't realize, like in America, because we have such this anti-drinking culture. And it's almost like one of these things that, for whatever reason, America or Americans, or either the government or the culture will decide to really push against something. And then it creates this sort of weird toxic cycle where we abuse whatever that fucking thing is. And it's like, so it's like alcohol. We have some of the strictest laws on alcohol in the whole fucking world. And I've been to a lot of places.
Yeah.
And, outside of, everyone knows the Muslim world is super strict on alcohol. Some places you can't get it at all. Some places it's highly limited. Some places it's just foreigners that can get it, all kinds of stuff, different countries. And then also, oddly enough, Scandinavia, super strict on alcohol. Not as bad as the Middle East.
Really?
But they have some really funky rules of, like, liquor stores are all closed by 6. You can't order doubles, like at a bar. They were only giving me 1 shot each. And I go, well, like, can I get a shot? Can you give me a glass of this and a shot of the same thing? And they go, no, if I do, we're going to kick you out. And I'm
Wow.
that was weird. But in America, we of course have, different laws of, like, I don't remember what they're called, but like
the open container laws, so
Yeah.
you can't drink outside.
That, to me, that one's the worst one, is the one that you like. Yeah, you can't
It's like, excuse me, I can't drink a beverage outside. Are you out of your mind?
because
Like, what kind of anti-freedom shit is that? That, like, not having to be 21 instead of 18, like in every other country.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's like, I'm not even a biggest fan of alcohol, right? I rarely drink anymore. I'm actually doing 75 hard for the second full time. And I just finished my first week, today or yesterday. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I regularly go without drinking. I very rarely drink. That said, it's like, it's not the government's job to tell me what I can and cannot do.
Well,
right.
I mean,
And,
yeah,
like, alcohol is one of the, here's what I'll say about alcohol, right? Compared to the rest of the world, the US has very, very strict laws. Maybe not as strict as, like, the Muslim world or Scandinavia, but the open container law, having to be 21 instead of 18. There are some, in most places you can't go to a liquor store, or, like, you can't buy after a certain time of the of night, so like after 9 p.m. or something like that. I know we have that here in Chicago. So it's like all these little weird laws. But the thing is, like, it is one of those, like, those vices that is it's not discouraged. It's not culturally discouraged. So I'm gonna push back on you on that a little bit, because I don't think it's culturally discouraged at all.
No, that's not a pushback. That was where I was leading.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, culturally, it's like, having a drink is, like, part of being a man, right? It's like, oh, like, coming back to, like, your house and after a long day of work and cracking open a Budweiser, or having a drink at the game, right, on Sundays, with your boys and your family, things like that. It's, like, really worked into the culture, which ironically might be one of the things, because so do you know how they say soy, like, ups your estrogen levels? And so
I heard that.
You heard that. So that's
another one of those weird things.
It's one of those weird things, right? So
I don't know how true it is, but
they're called, it's not called estrogen. It's called estro something or others. They're like enzymes that are the precursors to, like, production of estrogen. That is a real thing. So the thing is, like, what the amount that exists in products like soy products and, like, soy milk and like soybeans, things like that, is like 10 to 20 times more in hops for beer. So if you're drinking, like, a really hoppy beer, like IPA, things like that, like, your phytoestrogens, that's what they're called. You're consuming a super high level of phytoestrogens, and that actually ups your estrogen production by a hell of a lot more than something like soy would.
You heard that, boys. No more fucking beer. Men drink scotch.
Yeah, dude. So
get yourself some fucking taste.
Yeah, so stick to scotch, stick to whiskey, right? Weed actually does something similar, although not to the same extent. Like, you're not consuming phytoestrogens with weed, but, like, it doesn't promote testosterone production. But yeah, man. So it's like, so you've got sort of juxtapositions here where you have a very stricter rule of law that very highly regulates alcohol, but then a culture that heavily promotes it. Meanwhile, you got America is the most highly medicated country in the entire world, where the
I want to cry when you say that.
pharmaceutical industry is the second biggest lobby in DC after the what are they called? The military industrial complex, from what I understand. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I understand. And,
yeah, I need a fact checker, because we're bringing in all these things that are like, oh, this study this and this study that, and
yeah,
it's like,
well,
I've heard of these things
before, right? Here's the thing. So here's the thing. You and I can just have a conversation, right? But guys, like if you're listening right now, you can go and research all this. Okay, like we're having conversations the same way you guys have conversations. So if we say things that are wrong, right? Go look that shit up and tell us that we're wrong.
Look it up. Yeah, fucking put in the comments. Fucking Vince and Russ are fucking assholes. They don't know shit. But fucking put a link. Don't just call us. I mean, you can call us assholes. I'll still take the I'll still take the comment. A comment's a comment, whatever. But if you're gonna call me, if you're gonna say we're wrong, I would really appreciate it if you at least included a link to something that is more substantive than me and him just kind of bringing up shit we heard about.
We're not looking this stuff up right now. Like, we're not fact checking.
We're just bullshitting, basically.
This is what I miss about the Rogan not being on Spotify now, is that the comment section, right? So like they have like a certain thing, and then you have the comment section, and you got discussions going on in there. You got people who are offering information, that kind of thing. And so I like that aspect of like podcasting, right? Where you got like a conversation, and then you can have like a whole discussion about it, about certain points and whatnot.
I try to stay out of the YouTube comment section, but you guys shouldn't definitely hang on the YouTube comment section. Lots of great, valuable things happening down there.
Yeah, man, throw some stuff in there, dude. Let's get it going. Let's keep the conversation going after it's already ended.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, man. But yeah, like it's, we're super highly medicated. I don't know if that has something to do with it, right? But it is what it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I feel like there is like a constellation of different things that are affecting all these different areas. Before we drift too far off of the alcohol thing, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was, I think that because we have such a highly restrictive set of laws against alcohol, that's what actually leads to abuse of it, is that, you can't drink till you're 21. So if you're cool, you're going to drink before you're 21. You need to go do this. You need to go do all this other shit. And it creates this toxic relationship. Whereas like, if you look at countries where underage drinking is quite normal, where there is no concept of underage because people alcohol is just a thing that you drink, then like, guess who you're probably going to have your first drink with? Probably your parents. Your family in a normal environment. And it's not this, ooh, we're being bad thing, because that's what it is in America. It's, ooh, we're being bad. So, which leads to more being bad, and then more decisions. And then also, because it's illegal, then, fucking law gets involved, and then you have, whatever interaction you have with them. And it just creates this spiral of shit going in the wrong damn direction, because we have this abusive relationship we've developed with alcohol. And even if none of that happens, in terms of like the underage drinking aspect of it, because it's this weird thing that is like promoted, but at the same time sort of stigmatized, that it does turn into this weird thing where people become alcoholics and they just want to drink this stuff all the time. And, and it becomes a mixture of all the other fucking problems we have in American society. But I feel like it's like one of those things of, just like how fitness is considered this separate category of thing for this select group of people, then people, it has this weird connotation. And then people that don't want to reject that end up abusing food, not working out, and all this other stuff. And it's like, I think that, drinking is a personal preference, but I don't think there should be any stigma attached to it. I don't think there should be any stigma to being fit or to being, I think that the way we stigmatize obesity in a lot of ways has a lot of extra baggage on it, that because it's such an issue of, whether someone's attractive or not, and that ends up being the focus, that if you notice, most of the pushback that's generated by the body positivity movement of them pushing back against, fat shaming and all that other stuff, is about the aesthetic aspects of it, of saying that like, oh no, you can be big and beautiful and all this other stuff. You have
to look at like why is someone attractive, right? It's not just like you're not just picking who's attractive. I mean, attraction is not a choice,
Mhm.
you know? And so you have to ask yourself, okay, like why am I attracted to this person and not
Mhm.
attracted to someone who's morbidly obese?
Mhm.
Like for a number of reasons. It's comes down to biology. Okay, like why are we attracted to girls who are fit and healthy, or guys who are fit and healthy
Mhm.
versus girls or guys who are morbidly obese?
Mhm.
Like, well, because biologically we want to have the best chance for our offspring to survive.
Mhm.
It's like,
Well,
okay, so like why aren't super fat people,
mhm.
attractive, so to speak? Because that's the exact opposite. Like
Right.
your offspring have less of a chance to survive, not just because, okay, like not just because of the being unhealthy, right? But like this, like the uh what being that overweight signals.
Mm.
Lack of impulse control, lack of discipline, right? So not just biological factors, but like
Mhm.
let's say personality as well.
Right.
So as far as that whole attractive thing
Mhm.
goes, it goes deeper than just choosing, in my opinion, it goes deeper
Mhm.
than just choosing, okay, you're attractive and you're not, but it's like
Mhm.
there is like a repulsion. We have like a few, I think
Mhm.
there are only like a few emotions. One of them is disgust.
Mhm.
Disgust is one of the fundamental emotions. Then there's
Mhm.
anger and joy and sadness, I think. I could be wrong, but disgust is one of them. And so
Mhm.
the reason you feel disgust or repulsion towards a certain thing is because your body is literally trying to keep you away from it.
Mm.
So, take that and run with it.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, so the thing about it is different people have different preferences, and
There
there
are
are
different.
there
Yeah.
are there are some men that claim to be attracted to that to varying degrees. As far as I know, it's not exactly
Okay.
the common thing.
So
But
yeah. So let's be like, you know, let's qualify that a little bit, right? Like
mm,
speaking in generalities.
mm,
In generalities, there are different like preferences depending on what culture you go to. There are different preferences
mm,
like for each individuals,
mm,
but there are some universal principles
mm,
that govern like what is attractive and what's not.
mm.
Symmetry, like a hip to waist ratio, curve in the back is
Well,
one of them as well.
one of the way I like to think about it is it's like it's a trend of like the
Yeah.
majority of people. If you were to poll, 1,000 men about their preferences on a woman's body type, they're probably going to indicate some
Yeah.
level of fitness and thinness, and of course you're going to have outliers are going to be in the
Sure.
other thing. But I mean, to be honest, like for as much as I am like very clearly only attract, like my preference clearly goes towards like fit, fit, thin, the mainstream, normal, stereotypical, what we consider to be as far as like attractiveness. And then and
Yeah,
even the
and
very
on the other side of that, not to interrupt, but on the other side of that, a lot of guys wouldn't find like your top female CrossFit competitors to be particularly physically attractive.
yeah,
Like the ones who are
yeah, the ones
jacked,
that
I
are
mean,
like
obviously
totally
super
jacked, like
healthy,
that's
like exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it
So
has
I
to do
mean,
with like, femininity, you know?
well, I mean, there's a lot of different components, so it's not. I don't want to. I don't want to make it too one dimensional. But what I would say is to agree with you that there's a biological component that's sort of built into like looking for signs of health that do signal to a man. Like other men obviously have different, interest like body styles that they're interested in, and that's but the very fact that the conversation sort of leading in that direction is sort of an indicator that like for me, like I do of course appreciate a good looking woman's body, but I more than anything, that really the only person whose opinion matters is your own opinion of yourself. And if you are happy with your weight the way it is, and you think I'm, I this is how I look, and and that to me that's beautiful. Hey, go sister, go brother, go. I mean, that is fine. However, as you said before, there are some objective measures of health that are having adverse consequences. And you may actually think that you are more attractive at a higher weight, and that is fine. But at that same point, you are sacrificing some of your health outcomes to have that thing that you consider to be more attractive. And
Hmm.
and to go a little bit further on it, um, if you decide that your opinion is the only opinion that matters, then that's what you should stick with. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be trying to judge other people for having a preference of thin, fat, or thin, fit people. Like if if that's not, because there's a lot of people that's not their preference. I mean, I talk to guys all the time that like that's actually not what they're into. They're not into the same thing I'm into, and maybe some of them are into fat. Girls that are overweight, some of them are into some other things, whatever, like traits that I think are super important, they are not interested in all. And the same thing with guys, there's a lot of women that don't want a big jack looking dude with the six pack and all that other stuff. They either find it not important at all, or they actively don't like it. And they would prefer a guy that, has sort of like a punk rock look, or just like a little more of a hipster, or whatever it is. Different people have different things that they're attracted to, which is why I think it is a little bit of a misnomer to make the main focus of the conversation of people should lose weight so they could be more attractive. It's like, well, no.
Oh yeah, that's not really what we're saying.
Yeah. But for me, it really is all about, it's about different aspects of health. And, you could talk about, like you said, hypertension, diabetes, COVID has a very negative outcome if you're obese. There's a whole bunch of different things that are negatively impacted by you being overweight. But also the other aspect of it is your mental health. Is like at the end of the day, you could be the fittest person in the world. You'd have, a great body. If you don't have your mental health, that kind of goes back to the thing of like you saying, you being what is the Confucian saying you were saying, which is basically everybody wants to be, a sick man just wants to be healthy.
You don't have health.
Well, your body, maybe you could be physically healthy, but you're mentally or emotionally totally unhealthy. And if on your way to becoming model thin, you're doing like bulimia and like looking at yourself in the mirror and you just fucking hate yourself and you have all these negative reinforcing things, you might actually be getting to that point. You might actually become a model. You might all that, but you're going to be fucking miserable. And what I mean what I want to emphasize is like, okay, you do want to be physically healthy. So being overweight probably isn't the best way for you to do that. But also we don't want to beat you down emotionally to get you to that point, because then you're emotionally miserable and then you're emotionally unhealthy.
You're already beating yourself up emotionally over something or a bunch of things already. Right. I mean, like who's your biggest critic? It's always you, unless you're a narcissist. Most people beat themselves up mentally all the time, more so than anybody else.
I'm a narcissist, no biggie.
Hey, there you
I'm
go,
I'm the biggest narcissist in the world. No one's humbler than me. I'm the humblest man in the world. Okay.
But I'm glad you brought up the mental health aspect of it too, because I mean, it's such a broad topic. I don't even know where to go from here, right? But like the sort of mindset that you build, okay. It's hard to tell what comes first, right? Like does mindset comes first, or I mean the actions that you do, because they all reinforce each other.
Right. It's a feedback loop.
It's a feedback loop. Yeah. So one thing that I've sort of found with myself specifically is that your actions come before your mindset. So you can sort of act yourself. If you do the actions that are needed to develop the mindset to act your way into feeling, basically. The term like motion creates emotion?
No, but that's cool. I like it.
Okay. So there's a phrase that goes, motion creates emotion. And the reason is like, if you start moving around, you get out of your head and into your body. You can't think your way out of a bad situation or like a bad feeling, or you can't feel your way out of it, but you can act your way out of it. You can get moving and get your blood pumping, and that actually physically changes how your brain thinks. There's a book called The Charisma Myth. And I forgot the author. So guys in the comments, look it up, but it's called The Charisma Myth. And it has like little to-dos, like little tasks, like sort of throughout the book as it's explaining things. And one of the things she says is like, okay, like look at your posture, how it is right now. If you like bend over, hunch down, put your head down, frown, don't smile, it is literally super difficult to feel happy or to think happy thoughts. But if you pull your shoulders back, sit up straight, pull your head back, lift up your chin, and you smile, it is almost physically or mentally impossible to feel sad. Your mind and your body, and you're gonna try this.
No, 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 no. I've done this before. I've done this. I didn't know. I didn't know there's a theory behind it or whatever. I'll get it. It's an anecdote though. I don't want to cut you off. I was just smiling.
Roger that. So this sort of like ties into like people have heard like the power pose. Oh, do a power pose before you go into an interview, right? Where you like stand in front of the mirror and your hands are up. But what it is that the mind and the body are intrinsically linked. Your body isn't just a meat vessel that carries your mind around. They are one and the same. The largest cranial nerve in your body is called the vagus nerve, VAGUS. And it travels, it's like the largest cranial nerve in your body, not the largest nerve in general, just largest cranial nerve. And so you're thinking, okay, so that's for sending messages from your brain down into your body. Not entirely so. 80% of the traffic from your vagus nerve travels from your body into your brain. And that's the largest cranial nerve there is.
No shit.
80% of the traffic goes from your body to your brain. So you may very well have a much more influential effect on your brain, on your mind, from what you're doing with your body. Like, is your blood flowing, right? Are you moving around? This is why when people like to go on walks, because when you go on walks, like you actually feel good. You know, if you're moving around, you go on a walk, you start to feel good. Your body's moving and your mind starts to settle a little bit, and then your mood changes as well. So this is something that like goes right in line with exercise, where it's like, okay, not only are you building the discipline to go, okay, because we talked about discipline, and I really wanted to get back to discipline, because discipline seems like a very high a high bar to reach, right, for people who are not used to being disciplined, right? Which is why, as you mentioned earlier, it's like you make one mistake and just like flip the table and it's all over. Now we're going back down a downward spiral, right? But the reason why exercise is so important is like because it is therapy, right? People. This is why like guys like who get into a breakup, how they go and hit the gym and get jacked, because it's like therapy. Because it's moving your body and getting stronger. And so it's like back on the path to self-development, becoming a better person, sort of like going through a metamorphosis, which is a very painful process, but you have to do it because you improve yourself at the end. But okay, I'm not sure how to transition this very well.
Oh, but no. I'll go into my anecdote, because I mean, really what this is turning into is it's more of a mental self-image thing. I wanted to talk about cardio, which we can get back to. Actually, no, I do. Yeah. Man, we've already been doing an hour and a half now. So, but anyway, we'll get back to that. It's okay. It's a podcast. It can keep.
We'll talk about cardio for sure. I want to talk about that.
So too. No, the thing that I want to talk about the thing you were talking about with the changing your mental, your physical, your posture, and how that affects your disposition and all that other stuff. Yeah. I ran that experiment with my roommate. This was back in the States before I moved to Korea. So it was back. It was back in like 2010 or so, and it was in Oklahoma City, and he kind of moved in with me because he wanted me to rub off on him a little bit more, so he could be a little more. He went through a breakup. He wanted to get better at talking to girls. He's like, oh, Vince is good at that. I'm gonna go ahead and move in with Vince, and it was great for me because we had a cool fucking apartment downtown, all that other stuff in Oklahoma City. So it was great. It was a great way to spend my mid 20s. Nice. But like I said, he was having, he was one of those people that didn't have a whole lot of confidence in his body language and other stuff like that. And I remember one time I like, he was kind of doing it. And I was like, dude, why are you like moving around like that? You need to open up a little bit more and fix your posture and like, speak up a little bit more and all this other stuff. And he goes, what do you want me to be like you? And I go, give it a shot. Let's go to dinner right now. We'll go down to Hooters. You copy what you think I move around and act like, and I will copy the way you move around and act like, and we'll go ahead and see how people respond to us.
Wow.
And sure enough, it had surprisingly predictable results. It was a surprise because it was like fucking night and day. We went down, we sat down. He was like, fucking teasing the waitress. He was using like all kinds of body language, being like just very like center of attention, which is kind of how I act sometimes, unfortunately, for people around me. And I was the other way. I was like, oh hey, and it's like I was trying to be like, very like, kind of passive. And like
Sure.
literally, I would try to order something like, hey, can I get a? And then the girl would just like not even acknowledge that I was there. It was the weirdest thing. I'm not used to like a server like ignoring me, but it was like apparently I was being so beta-ish that she was just like, eh. And then him, who's used to this other form of treatment, she was ready to grab his face and kiss him while we were just in a while we were at her restaurant at her work. She was just like, so like the level of sexual tension there was so fucking visible. It was hilarious. Wow. And then at the end, the check came out, we paid, and and I said, did you see how easy that was? He goes, wow, that was amazing. I'm like, all you got to do is just do that all the time. And look how much better, how much more confident, you're behaving, how much more women respond to you, all this other stuff. And it's like, you just did it. You literally just did it.
Yeah.
And I could never get
his way into like a new personality.
And I couldn't get him to keep doing it. It was so sad because I wanted him to be confident and all that other stuff. But it's like, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink or whatever. But it's like, but I mean, it really just, it foot stomps what you said is like, you can act your way into a certain state. And that's kind of part of the reason that, like, you saw before I hit record, I always, even though you and I have hung out in person, even though it was forever ago, whenever I'm doing one of these podcasts, even if everything's already ready, I'll spend 5 minutes ahead of time with the guest, just sort of chatting them up, getting them laughing, getting them bullshitting, kind of raising the mood in the room. And then I'll hit record. That way we can hit the ground running. And even if I'm having some kind of technical issue where I have to, something's wrong with, whatever camera, whatever, and I have to pause and restart before I'll restart. And I'll just go, okay, we're on, go. I'll talk to him a little bit more and get the mood going again. Cause I want to have the conversation be like fun and energetic and them feel comfortable going with the back and forth and all that other stuff. Cause sometimes when you're doing this, but there's like little things that you pick up of ways to get yourself in state to where you're going to feel more confident and more, sociable and all those other things. And I don't really know what this has to do with weight loss. I mean, it does. It absolutely does.
Yeah, fitness in general, right? Or just it's not even just fitness. It goes back to that being like one of the foundations for life, really, right? Is like what you put in your body, how you move it, and then how you think. I mean, and all those three are just linked together. They're all one and the same, really. You can't have one without the other. Like your mindset is going to determine how, like, how consistent you are, how disciplined you are, like how effective you are with everything you do. Your nutrition is actually probably one of the most important thing because it's literally how you fuel your body. It's what your body is made out of. Your cells are made out of what you eat, right? And that could be high quality or it could be low quality or it could be the wrong things. A lot of us don't have very high protein intake, for instance, and you'll die without protein. That's just one of the facts of life. And then fitness is like how strong are you? Like, is your body going to wither away like when you get older? Like how, like that's your longevity right there. They've actually done some studies where they used to think it was mobility that would determine how like that would have the largest impact on your lifespan. But now there are some studies that came out of the UK that said it might actually be your strength. So people who strength train rather than be mobile has like a slightly bigger impact on how long you live, right? So your longevity overall.
Shit, I'm gonna be 90 then.
Right?
Shit.
I could press 3 plates, it's just like I'm gonna live forever.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. 4 plates, you make it to 110.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think it probably has to do more with mobility, but I mean, we'll see, right? There's like a bunch of things that, overall it might just be stress, right? How stressed you are.
I think it's sleep. I think that if you're habitually under sleeping, I think you're taking fucking time off the end of your life. I really do. I think that's your
totally
brain.
right.
Yeah.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah. I think if I had to pick one thing, I would go with that, which is of course the thing that I'm completely fucking up on. So I for as much as I've gotten all these gains, I'm screwing myself on the back end by not getting enough sleep. So see how that goes.
I get about like 6 hours a night.
Ugh,
And I need 8 though.
terrible. No, yeah, people that say they like, oh no, I get by with only 6. No, you can't. You're just fucking yourself up. It's like technically you go driving drunk, but you do that enough times, it's gonna shorten your life.
Building up sleep debt until the weekend and where you get your hours back, right? You know the term sleep debt?
Yeah, no, I've heard of that. And I do actually remember in high school, my health teacher telling us, oh yeah, but you can get it back. And she foot stopped that a couple times. And no, you can't. It's bullshit. Like, I mean, you, to an extent, you can get a little bit of it back, but your brain needs that sleep time to sort of process things. And so you could get some of it back, but there's going to be that little bit that you're not going to get back. It's not a bank account.
Yeah, it's not a bank account.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get to your question about cardio because I know you really wanted to ask me that.
Yeah, because I need some cardio ideas because I'm getting bored.
Okay, so let me ask you this: like you need to say like what is your goal with cardio, or like what do you want to use it?
I mean, I want to use it to reduce body fat while not losing too much weight, or not losing too much muscle. So, and I'm like a pretty like capable guy. I mean, I can swim, I can run, I can do a lot of different physical things. But it's more about being able to do, like, having a couple things that would sort of meet that requirement. And also I really detest the idea of going to a treadmill. I really don't want to be on a treadmill because it's just so mind-numbingly boring for me.
Yeah, so that's actually awesome. I wouldn't recommend going on a treadmill either, right? So if you look at how your body actually loses fat, a very small percentage of it is actually exercise. Right. So it's largely you probably already know this, but for your listeners, right? The way you lose fat, it's largely your basal metabolic rate. Okay. So for those who don't know, your basal metabolic rate is basically all the natural functions that your body uses to stay alive. It's digestion, it's brain function, it's like your organs working. So all of that is about 60 to 70% of how many calories you burn. Now, the next part of that are non-exercise activities. So like moving around, blinking, walking around during the day, chewing, things like that. That's not specific exercise. That's like another 15 to 20%. Only about 5 to 15% of the calories that you burn throughout the day are from exercise alone, like specific exercise, weightlifting, cardio, things like that. Problem is, or the thing is that LISS, which is low intensity steady state cardio, something like running on the treadmill or walking, is not particularly effective for weight loss because it's low intensity, and so it takes a long time. So it's really not effective at all. The most effective way to lose excess fat is through your diet. And so you can do that in a number of ways. I mean, like the old adage, calories in, calories out, really comes into play. You always want to burn less or burn more calories than you take in. So what that means is you stick to your lifting schedule or you work out and you just eat a little bit less. One good way to do that is to look at your protein intake and take in a high amount of protein. Protein has the highest thermic effect out of the 3 macronutrients, which means that you're burning 25 to 30% of all the protein calories that you take in when you're digesting. So you're burning more calories when you're digesting protein than you are with carbs or fats. So when you have a high protein diet, that helps. It also keeps you more satiated, although that's a little bit more subjective. But it also helps you burn muscle as well, or rather build muscle as well. So you want to make sure you're getting in, if you have a high protein diet, that's 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body fat, per pound of body weight that you're looking at. So if you weigh 207 right now, then you want to get in around like 200 grams of protein a day. All right. So that would be like a high protein diet.
Mm.
That would be awesome in terms of fat loss.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're sticking to your lifting schedule. So you don't actually need to do something like running on a treadmill or like cardio. Because what does cardio actually do, right? Cardio trains your cardiovascular system.
Mm-hmm.
Cardio is good for increasing your VO2 max and for improving your heart, right? It's not particularly good for losing fat.
Mm.
That's not something actually you want to focus on. There are some things that you can do, however, that will like, if you get your heart rate up really, really high, like it does have a cardiovascular effect. So like lifting heavy, right? Doing heavy back squats or heavy deadlifts, like that's cardiovascular as fuck. Like you ever grind through like a super heavy lift and like your heart's pounding at
No,
the end of it?
never. No, I've
Gotta
never
sit
lifted.
down.
I've never lifted weights before.
So you know already, right? Like it's cardiovascular as fuck because I mean, you're working really, really hard. You're under a high
Mhm.
amount of stress, high intensity. Some other things you can do are like, you live in Korea, it's super hilly over there, right?
Mhm.
Just go for a walk up a hill or like do hill sprints. Those are brutal. And those will do a lot more for burning fat than like a jog would. If you look at like the sprinters, like Olympic sprinters,
Mhm.
like they're all super jacked and just completely shredded because like the high intensity, it trains your fast twitch muscle fibers, which grows your muscle, and B, when you grow more muscle, your body actually burns more fat as well. So 1 pound of muscle burns 3,500 calories a week. That's equivalent to the amount of calories in a pound of fat. So for every pound of fat, for every pound of muscle that you pack on,
Mhm.
you're burning 3,500 calories a week. You're burning an extra 500 calories a day.
Yeah, I think that for me and like my military background, we go running so much as like a normal exercise that like it's at
Right.
the end of the day, and I basically tell myself, because I do, like I said, I do have a pretty long commute, and so I'm like, okay, I'm about to get in my car and sit in my car for 2 hours after I've been sitting at my desk for 4 hours, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I will not get in my car to go home because I know if I go home, I'm gonna, be able to enjoy my life again. I'm not
Right.
allowed to get in my car until I do some cardio.
Okay.
And so I'm like, if that's 2 miles or 3 miles or whatever, because that's my default, I'm just like, I just need to get out and I just need to go do something. But now that I've gotten in the habit of doing that, I'm like, okay, what is actually some better cardio that I could do aside from just going and jogging 2 or 3 miles. And now
Okay.
I'm thinking, now you got me thinking something I've noticed before, but something I never really internalized, which is, yeah, freaking like marathon runners are skinny as shit. They obviously have low body fat, but then they also have no muscle. And that's what I'm starting to be concerned about, is like, I don't want to lose all this muscle that I've been spending years and years putting on. That kind of misses the point. But then these sprinters, these are in good shape. So you just gave me an idea. I'm gonna have to get a sprinter on this podcast. That's what I need to do.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. That'd be awesome. That'd be a great
There
conversation.
you go. And they could talk about their workouts and different shit like that. I think that would work I think that would work great. Thank you. Next
Okay,
episode.
and we're out. Dephender podcast. Subscribe.
Cliffhanger.
But okay, so to answer your question, like one of the things you can do if you don't want to go running and if you want to actually save some time, you can actually do like some drills that would get you there. Things like burpees, for instance, right? Like if you just do 100 burpees, you can add the jump at the end. You don't have to, right? But it's not easy. See how quickly you can go through your 100 burpees. Or you can do something called minute drills. Minute drills are like this nice, it's like a little circuit of, let's say, 4 to 6 exercises, and you do each for 30 seconds to a minute, and then you have a round of rest before you do it again. So you do like 3 to 6 rounds of that. So it would be something like burpees and then jumping jacks and then mountain climbers and then skipjacks and like plyometric movements, things like that. And so you can do rounds of that. So that something like that will save time. You can get that done in like 10 minutes instead of going on, a 3-mile run, which will take, I don't know, 20, something, 22 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that. So if you're looking to save time instead of, having to come home later after your 2-hour commute, like that can be an option as well. Something more that's more plyometric and more intense. It'll assist in building muscle, and it'll have that same cardiovascular effect, but you're achieving it in a shorter amount of time because the intensity is high versus a long amount of time because jogging, the intensity is low. So that's something that can be an option as well.
Oh, excellent. No, and that's kind of what I was thinking is like, I started doing that, like, you and I being Muay Thai, dudes, I can't, like I said, I don't do it here anymore because I got to wear a damn mask. But such trash. But it's like, I got in the habit of jumping rope, doing the training. So I was just like,
Awesome.
well, screw it. I'll just rather than doing going and doing 3 or 4 miles, I'll just go to the back and do 10 minutes of jump rope, and then I'll get in my car, and that'll be fine. But no, but one of the things I was actually like, wasn't sure if that was even like a good, like that's okay, but it's like, because the amount of physical movement you're actually doing is relatively minimal. You're just barely kind of like hopping up on your toes. And I'm like, maybe it's got to be something that has a larger range of motion. But
you can practice on that. So jumping rope, like if you're just doing it, like this, that's one thing. But you can go a little further than that. You can go high knees, right? You can do double unders. You can do crossovers. You can do side to sides where you
do some Rocky shit. Yeah, do some Rocky shit.
Yeah, just do a ton of gangster Rocky stuff. Exactly. Like you ever see like the boxers like just jump rope, like Floyd and Pacquiao and all them? It's crazy. Boxers have some of the best jump rope skills. There's a lot of stuff I don't do with jumping rope. Like I like jumping, right? But like I'll just do some normal stuff. I won't do crossovers or anything like that. But if you do like 100 double unders, like you're gonna be smoked. You're gonna be absolutely smoked. Something that my brother does is like, instead of having, you can get weighted ropes. So you have an even like larger effect on your core, because like in your arms too, because it's weighted. So you're sort of, you have to use your stabilizers more and stay put more. So it's a much more larger drain on your core. And so my brother, he actually has a heavy rope. It's like a thick, it's like a smaller battle rope where you use it to jump. And that thing is an absolute beast. Like it has you gasping it has you like, oh my God, after doing it for too long.
That inspired me though. Now I've got all kinds of things I want to research and look into.
Nice.
So
man.
Yeah, doing some different stuff and mixing it up. Hey, but as far as but you said right now you're doing online coaching mostly, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, doing online coaching. I'm part of an online fitness academy, like an awesome company called Dream Team Academy. Myself and 5 other high-level online coaches. And so it's kind of like an online little community. We've got our own private Facebook group with all our students who are on their journeys. And so that sort of ties in with like the whole accountability aspect, because everyone comes in, posts their wins. We run trainings in there too. And so it's awesome. It's really cool. Everyone's sort of like in there to win it together, and we're all progressing as one on the same mission, as one crew. And we're growing every day too, like getting on new students to come and train. And so it's pretty awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so but when I post this, if anybody's interested, the link to Russell's group will be in the description, and then
so
down there.
Private group. So you actually want to join, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Facebook/Russ RUSS.SG. Or search me, Russell Craig. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, unfortunately, at Coach Russell Craig.
But I'll include all of that information. That'll be in the description. So we'll be able to do that, and it's like, if anybody wants to reach out and join the group and had fun talking to you, or hopefully nobody
Cool.
wants to harass you because you are mean about fat people or me.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
they
please
can
come and
mean
harass
to
me.
me.
I'm happy to happy to have a conversation about that. But
All right.
yeah, Vince, it was an absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me on the Defender podcast. And yeah, maybe I can be a repeat guest at some point if you'll have me. It'd be cool.
All right, man. All right,
This is great.
I want to thank you again for listening this far into the podcast. And even if that's all you do, I'm still immeasurably grateful. If you would like to go deeper into our mission of helping you maintain an active, healthy, and injury-free lifestyle, you can go ahead and subscribe to our mailing list at defender.com. On there, you'll receive exclusive content as well as special offers on upcoming products. Thank you.